tell you, that's a message for tonight. That almost in completion. That's it. Saw a movie the other night that some folks that were logging, and the guy who supervised them, he didn't talk much, but when he would tell somebody to do something, he said, "Enough said," and that was it. He left it at that, And some things are just kind of like that. My dad gave me a little plaque after I graduated from seminary and headed into ministry. It says, "Fill my mouth with worthwhile stuff and nudge me when I've said enough." And I think that was a hint, so that's kind of how it is. We're going to have some questions tonight, a few of them. And one of the questions that I want to ask you is, what day is it? It's Friday. Now, since I've become a senior adult and retired, we have a clock that tells us what day it is. That's important for me, so sometimes I can't remember. So it's there. What's tomorrow? No, it's Friday. We live on Good Friday. This is our day. You know that, right? We haven't gone to the other side yet. We see a lot of people disappear. A lot of things happen. I went to Ashley River, and large church in a lot of ways. But that first year, I learned something. Some months I'd have 10 funerals. I've had 3 in one day. And I just pray to the Lord that I would remember the right name on the funeral I was delivering, which followed the last one, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of times like that. Susan called me one day and she said, "Hon, I've got a meeting I've got to go to. Can you pick up the girls?" I said, "Yeah." But it dawned on me that I had a funeral that day. And so we were going to be buried out towards Magnolia and some of those areas out there. That's where we were headed. So as soon as I left the church, I got in my car and I headed to the school and I picked up the girls and I took them to the cemetery and I put them over on the edge. I said, "Nobody's going to see you over here but me. I'm going to be right here. Now I want you to stay." And Susan, when we got home, girls tell me that you babysat them in the cemetery. He says, "What were you thinking?" I said, "It's a dad thing, hon. It's a dad thing. That's all there is to it." So I thought that when I came here to Riverland Hills, that they were telling me they didn't have that many funerals, maybe 3 or 4 a year. I couldn't believe it. But I had 26 marriages the first year. 26. Well, that's true, but sometimes I'll wake up with these things in my mind. "Dearly beloved, we're gathered here in the sight of God," and I start running through it, and it's an amazing thing. But let me tell you about living on Friday. When you go to these homes, and I've seen a lot of different families, and you sit there, and some are just so remorseful because they really never said what they wanted to say to this person. Let me tell you, we live on Friday. We're told in Revelation that he has the keys to death, and we're not going to go to his time. You know that, right? So that's important to understand. He knows what he's doing. But it's such a wonderful thing to see people laugh when we're preparing for the service in that home, telling stories. And when we start out, they start usually telling me about how wonderful they are. And I tell them, I said, I knew him. He wasn't that great. We just kind of start out. I said, we need to talk here for a minute. Tell me about him. Did he sing in the shower? Little things like that. And get them going. And they would laugh and cry at the same time. You ever seen that? There's nothing like Christian people, because they know that there's a Good Friday. And by the way, I just want to remind you, if there's something you need to say to somebody, man, don't wait, because you might not be here. The only thing that you've been promised on this earth, as far as living is concerned, is the breath you're taking right now. Am I right? Yeah, man, make that phone call, write that letter, do what you need to do. And it's just one of those things. We live on Good Friday. But it's a hard time. It's a hard time. Listen to this verse. It's John chapter 11, verse 26, 27. It says, Jesus said to her, I am. There's no other person in the world who's ever said this. I am the resurrection and life. And the one who believes that is trusting in what I said, don't call me a liar. Now you got to know that your faith is in me. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Or do you think I'm lying about it? Now, how in the world would he prove it? Well, he had to go through Good Friday. It had to be done publicly. We had to see it. The world had to see it. But what a rough day that was. I can tell you stories about some of my funerals. The one that really, and I've told some of y'all this, but the Sneeds, Dr. Sneed, great man, lived out in Megaton, several miles from the church, and we didn't have cell phones, and the police department called and said that there'd been an accident out on the Edisto Highway, and their son had been killed, but they couldn't find the parents. They weren't home. So I said, well, I don't know anything about what they've got going on today, but I'm going to go out to the house. Well, they weren't there either. But I decided I'd sit on the front steps and wait for him. He was on that little peninsula area coming out of Edisto. He and 3 boys. And there was a drunk driver headed right for them. They got off the road. But the drunk driver hit them head on. He lived. The car caught on fire. It couldn't have been. It's a horrible kind of experience for a parent. And so I had to sit on those steps, glad that I could serve them like this, and glad I could tell them, and wait for that car to come in the driveway. What had happened was he was at a conference downtown Charleston. They actually, he told me later, heard that ambulance leave because that's where the conference was. It was right a floor above where those ambulances left. They actually heard the ambulance leave to go to that accident. And so I did my duty. And a lot of times I want to tell you something. I enjoyed funerals because I got to know a lot about people. People don't tell you about themselves, but man, the family will. They'll tell you about things you just didn't know about them. But let me tell you what. There's some hard times when you see a loved one put to death. And the verse I just mentioned to you is one of the verses that gave them strength and is still giving them strength today. And so it's important to know that there is a God who loves us enough that even though we have a Good Friday, he does for us what needs to be done to get us to the other side. And it's at the blink of an eye. We get to skip death. We die physically, yes, but we get to skip death. We are eternal beings. We are eternal beings now. It's not going to start later. The very moment you receive Jesus Christ, your resurrection was assured, your eternal life was assured. So what a thought that is, even though these kind of things take place. But it's devastating. That night, that day, when they crucified Jesus Christ, I can tell you, they had to be just at a loss. Can you imagine those disciples and the questions they had and the confusion they experienced when they realized that he had given the deaf power to hear? He had given sight to the blind. He'd even raised the dead. And he didn't do that to 1, 2, or 3 people. He did it to hundreds of people. And they saw it. He walked on water. The Mount of Transfiguration was there when Moses, when all those folks, there he was hanging on the cross and he was dying. And I can imagine, and they scattered, not because they just didn't know where to go. They'd been with him for 3 years. They thought they knew him. They had hopes. They had it kind of lined out. They were wrong, but he was dead. Best made plans of mice and men. And the women, oh my goodness. There's Mary Magdalene. He had destroyed, gotten rid of 7 demons that were in her body, saved her from prostitution. Can you imagine how thankful she was for him? And how she looked at that death? Now, Mary, you ever lost a child? That's a tough time. I mean, it's one thing to come up here and put nails on a cross, but what if somebody required your baby to be there, your child to be there, where those nails were placed in that cross? Can you imagine what Mary went through? The power of those moments and the confusion. They watched the excruciating crucifixion, and I can, in my mind, hear them crying. I think there were a lot of tears in Jerusalem. A lot of tears in Jerusalem. Next question. How many of you, and if you just tell me, just a uplifted hand, if you don't want to do that, that's fine, but how many of you have ever seen a rainbow? Yeah, they are. They are. Most of you have not, and you don't have any idea what I'm talking about. But if you're a Navy pilot and you get off an aircraft carrier, they'll come back and tell you, guess what I just saw? A rainbow. Rainbows are not halves, circles. They're full circles. And from the plane, from that particular position, it all comes together. And from our view right here on this Good Friday, and our view on the Fridays that we live with people around us, God gives us a glimpse of the fact there's something else bigger and better and more perfect about that person that has just taken place. We have a sense there's something else there. That's why we're here today. Death is a hard time. There is no doubt about it. That man was walking down the street, and he walked by a little store that sold trinkets and those kind of things, and there was a poster that he put up because the guy inside was a Christian, and he just wanted people to know what happened, and Jesus was there on the cross, and there was the Romans, and and there was Mary at the bottom of it, and he was just kind of taking it in. He was looking at it, and a little boy came out, and the son of the guy that owned the store, and he was sweeping. And he said, I wonder if he knows what this is. I said, son, what is this? What do you see in this picture? He says, I seen them there, those Romans. They murdered that man right there. Jesus had murdered him, and that's his mama crying at the base. And he smiled to himself, and he said, thank you. And he walked off. Well, he said, I guess he didn't know. And he could hear footsteps coming behind him, and the boy was dragging the broom. He said, sir, mister, he didn't stay dead. Just want to make sure you know that. And he walked back. God, I'm telling you, because this is a God taking care of us, and we're here tonight basically to realize what Christ did, but we also need to understand with understanding that when people lose somebody, it's our job to comfort them. Knowing the truth, the wisdom of the moment, it's hard for somebody to leave even for 10 years or 2 years. And it's our job to take care of them. And it's our job when the time comes to help them with the truth. But God will get there first. God will get there first. It might take 3 weeks. It might take 4 weeks. God will get to them first. But as you talk to them, hold them and keep them. This is a hard time. This is a hard time. Now, let me just tell you how thankful you're going to be tonight. I don't know how many black services you've been to, but those folks know how to worship. They know how to worship. And we had S.M. Lockridge to come speak, and I have a pastor friend that just retired from a church in Greenville. And when he came in, he said they didn't have more room, so they put me in the choir loft because they found out I was a preacher, and that's where the preachers were sitting that night. And he said, when they started, I couldn't hear what the preacher was saying because all these men around me were going, preach on, brother, all this stuff. He said, I wanted to say, shut up! You know, not a good word to say if you're young, kid, you know, it's one of those things. But he said, he was just so like, but he says, I found myself standing on the chair with my brother next to me about halfway through the service. And he says, I was one of them. I'm going back. So it's like that. They just know how to worship. They just know how to worship. And there's something that we all know. There's a story we all know, but we don't know where it came from. It came from a Good Friday in a black church. And that night they had 7 preachers. But don't groan. They had 7. See, you're fortunate you got me. That's good. I'm just one. 7 preachers. And the guy that wrote this story says, he said, I don't know when the 7th preacher was going to get up what he could say that hadn't already been said. And you know what he said. He basically had that one-line sermon. You may be living on Friday, but Sunday's what? Coming. Of course, they encouraged him, which is what black churches do. So he went on just a little bit and talked about the devil thought he had won, and all those other folks did. But my goodness, how he had to die because they had to prove his resurrection. It had to be public. You know, he was quick to the point. But when they finished that service, he would say, it's Friday, and it is, every day. It's Friday, but Sunday's coming. It's Friday, but Sunday's coming. And he would say, it's Friday, and they would say, come on now, it's Friday. It's Friday. Hallelujah. We can close this service out with that one thought. And as far as I'm concerned, nothing else matters. Folks, that's good news. And there are people out there that don't know it. Our job is to tell them. And God will open the door if you ask him. We're going to sing, before we leave here, the old rugged cross, the proof that he died and the proof of his resurrection. And so as we sing this, I pray that you'll have the joy of the moment. If there's somebody that's hurting, we're going to stop and have a moment of prayer after that. But what I want you to do is pray for somebody who's lost somebody this last year and just lift them up to God. Would you do that? Because this is going to be a tough, tough Easter, but a joyous Easter when they know Jesus Christ. But let's stand. Let's sing together if we could.